guys, and welcome back to the Magical Boots. If you're new here, I'm Casey Charlton, and every week I answer a question that is heavy on people's noggins about my recent film, West Side Sparkles. For this week's question, it is, how does your product use or challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues? First off, West Side Sparkles has three genres: revisionist western, romantic comedy, and magical realism. The conventions of a revisionist western are stereotypes, cowboys, frontier setting, and usually Native Americans. Rom-coms tend to have the main couple having an unnatural way of meeting each other, aka a meet cute, a comedic relief friend, and an opposites attract dynamic of the couple. Lastly, magical realism includes blending the fantasy world with reality. Think of Harry Potter, for example, and all the effects of magicness and mythical creatures existing within London. My film has upheld some of the conventions listed above. In West Side Sparkles, we kept the setting in the wilderness to resemble the frontier seen in most Western movies, even including live chicken as a prop during the start of the film. Our characters, Cletus and Gertie, follow the cowboy look with their cowboy hats, boots, flannel, and Cletus having a gun holster. My character, Sugar Plum, had a floral dress with fairy wings, tapping into that nature aspect of fairies. We kept the rom-com aspect with a meet cute of Gertie chasing Sugar Plum until they fell on top of each other. Ooh. We incorporated the comedic relief friend aspect by Cletus being the humorous type. However, we did challenge the conventions. The idea of having a female cowgirl as the main protagonist isn't common in Western themes, and really putting the why I oughta and fighting the political perspectives. I feel like the only other main cowgirl I've seen is Jessie from Toy Story. Usually, fairies are animated into film like Tinkerbell and live-action Peter Pan, and with magic, yet speaking little to no words. But in our case, I was an actual human fairy that had 2 lines with no magic. Now, for the topic of representation, I heard about this theory from sociologist Paul Gilroy about how people from ethnic backgrounds are often dehumanized into powerless beings. This is relevant as Western movies are usually discussing issues seen throughout our history, the whites versus Native Americans. Native Americans have been discriminated numerous times, genocides being inflicted just for existing. Our film interprets the conflict through cowboys versus fairies. With Gilroy's theory, he has a bias that ties in called an unconscious bias. If you're like me and have absolutely no clue what that means, here's the stitch. An unconscious bias is when a character or person thinks better or worse of someone due to their race, religion, or age. Clearly, Cletus has such a bias against Sugar Plum with the slurs he spews at Gertie while she's spaced out in love. West Side Sparkles is noticeably an LGBTQIA+ film, as the main couple, the cowgirl and the fairy, are lesbians. We had the film Brokeback Mountain in mind when creating the storyboard because it is a gay Western film centered around a rodeo cowboy and a ranch hand. Just as that film battles with the issue of homophobia, our film battles with homophobia through how unsupportive Cletus is about the whole situation, even shooting towards Sugar Plum and Gertie while they're on top of each other. Funny, yet unfortunate enough, fairies has been an offensive term against homosexuals for ages. It's silly how I represented the race and sexuality issues with my character. Knowing that LGBTQIA+ films are frowned upon, there's also a sense of misogyny. When we see Gertie leading the way, Cletus is behind her looking like a bodyguard. In my humble opinion, this feels like Gertie is being belittled, like she's a rolling ball of vulnerability if she isn't by Cletus' side. Not gonna lie, it reminds me of old Hollywood, but I digress. That wraps up for this week's episode on Magical Boots podcast. Next week, we'll be back to answer another question that's been heavy on your guys' noggin. Bye!